This is by no means a masterclass in red wine. However, by the end of it, my goal is to make sure that you feel more confident when you're talking about wine, when you're choosing a wine, or just when you're drinking wine and you want to describe it. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey and Wine. I'm Sam, and today we are talking about red wine. So, of course, we have to have a little bit if we're going to talk about it. Now, in classic whiskey and wine fashion, yes, we are going to start at the very beginning. We're going to talk about what red wine is, what you need to know about it. It's going to be very brief. However, if you want to skip over it, I completely understand because I would likely do the same thing. Red wine, believe it or not, has to be made from red wine grapes. Now, I do say this because you can technically make a white wine from a red wine grape as well, but if you have a red wine, it has to come from a red wine grape. Why is that? The color and the structure of the wine is actually going to come from the skins. So when you are making a red wine, you pick all the grapes, you stick it into a little machine that cleans all the grapes up, so you just have the grapes, you don't have any of these sticks, leaves, anything like that, and then you're going to crush the grapes. And then the grapes are going to be allowed to ferment in their juice, so you have all of the skins of the grapes, the seeds, everything, all the juice mixed together, and you're actually going to mix this up as it kind of ferments to make sure that it is thoroughly incorporated. This is where, again, you get that color, you get the structure, or the tannin. Now, the word tannin, what is that? It's just a naturally occurring material that you can get out of the skins of the grape, and you're also going to get it out of like wood barrels, things like that. And it's that little bit of a bitter, drying aspect when you sip on a red wine, or even when you have a whiskey and it tastes a little drying, that is going to be a tannin. Now, after this has had the chance to actually ferment, then you're going to press off all of the skins, and then you're going to let it age, and then you're going to bottle it, whatever you have to do from there. And that's where you're going to get this lovely beverage. So now we know how red wine is made. What are some of the characteristics of red wine, and what do you really need to know? When it comes to red wine, there are going to be three different categories. So you have your light-bodied, medium-bodied, and full-bodied. But what does this word body mean? This is just going to be the weight of the wine or the thickness of the wine. So if you have something that is a light-bodied red wine, it is likely going to taste and just feel, not really taste, but feel lighter in your mouth, whereas a full-bodied red wine is going to feel thicker. It is going to feel more viscous. It's going to take up basically more space, if you will. As you go from lighter to the full body, this kind of works as a scale. On the lighter side, you're going to typically have things that are a little bit more fresh and a little bit brighter. So you're going to have like this bright red cherry, even strawberry, and you might even get some things like green pepper or some other notes like that over here. Just very light, higher in acidity, fresher flavors. And then as you move to the medium-bodied, you're going to start to give way to the full-bodied style, which is going to be much darker and more things like blackberry, black cherry, stewed fruit. You might even get some leather, might get some chocolate, might get these more earthy tones that are going on in there. So just think of it as a slider. It's really the easiest way to think about it if you ask me. The biggest takeaway here is that not all red wines are going to be these big, bold, drying red wines like a Cabernet Sauvignon or something like that, where you just feel like you got punched in the face. Some are going to be a little bit more delicate, like a Pinot Noir or a Cinsault, something like that. Speaking of these different styles, here are a couple of the styles that you are most likely going to hear about and you're going to just see when you go out to a restaurant or when you're shopping around. These are probably the most common red wines that you're going to find here in the US. Now, if you go elsewhere, you're going to find a lot of other styles as well, but typically here in the US is what you're going to find. You're going to have things like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, Syrah, Bordeaux blends, and you might also find a Beaujolais. Now the question is, well, what are all of these wines? So very simply, if you have something like a Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, these are going to be leaning typically a little bit more towards that bigger bodied style. Now Merlot is going to be a little bit more in the middle, and most Cabernet Francs that I've had, which is what this guy is, kind of lean a little bit more to the middle as well, especially if it's here from the US. Zinfandel, this is going to be another one where it can be a little on that lighter side as well, kind of sitting in the medium area, and the flavors are potentially going to be a little bit more spice forward, which I really love when you get that black pepper note. Another style that's going to sit not in the complete full body area, but leaning to the medium body is going to be a Syrah. Now, yes, there are some Syrahs that are going to be extremely drying, extremely full body, and just like punch you in the face. However, that is not always the case. This is where knowing the region is actually going to come into play. And I don't mean you have to know this was from Napa, this is Sonoma, this is this little area. You don't need to know all of that. The only thing you really need to know is, was this a warmer region? Was it a cooler region? So if you understand mostly basic geography. I know I'm still struggling with some of this. If they have a really specific location, I have to look to see actually where it is. But you want to know if it was warm or if it was cold. If you have a warmer region, this is going to typically be a little bit more fruit forward, and you're not going to have as much acid. Also might get some more sugar. Now, if you have a cooler area, so think like Northern Oregon, or we're talking about Germany, or we're talking about just these cooler areas, Northern France even, those are going to be wines that have a little bit more acidity to it and are not going to be quite as sweet. So kind of keep that in mind, because you might find one wine that you really enjoy from a specific location, try it from a different spot, and it's not going to taste quite the same. There is this sense of terroir or regional influence to the wine. Don't let that throw you off too much though. For the most part, if you say you like Cabernet Sauvignons, Cabernet Sauvignon is going to taste like Cabernet Sauvignon. However, there are going to be minute differences that you're going to start to pick up on, but that's something you can kind of just have fun with and do as you taste more things. Let's talk about how you should be serving your wine and storing your wine if you're actually picking it up, buying it, and you have it at your house. First up with storage. The biggest thing here is you want to keep your wine away from light, and you want to make sure that it is in a relatively cool, dry, constant temperature area. If the temperature is fluctuating a lot, this is going to start to damage the wine. If it has a lot of light, this can also damage the wine. Obviously, you don't want it somewhere that's super humid and things can happen with your cork. You want to keep it somewhere dry. Now, if you're like me, when you got into wine, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go put this on like the top of my cabinet. Don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. Don't do that. Putting a wine bottle up that high is going to allow the temperature to fluctuate a lot, and that is going to damage the wine. Also, it's going to be closer to your lights. So this is any type of light. It's not really great for the wine. Now, when it comes to serving your wine, for red wines, what I like to do is I like to follow the 15-minute rule. All this means is I keep it out at room temperature, but I don't want to be drinking it at, say, 70 degrees, like room temperature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it in the fridge for about 15 minutes before I open it, take it out, open it, and then serve it. This allows for it to be chilled just a little bit more, so it's a little bit more approachable, but if someone does want to let it open up and warm up a little bit more, they can definitely do that. That's totally fine. You'll see me sometimes holding the glass like this because I want to warm up the wine a little bit so I can taste some different things at the wine being at different temperatures. The last thing I want to talk about real quick here was a fun aging myth, or fun wine myth, that wine gets better with age. This is not true for the majority of wines. Most wines, especially wines that you and I are most likely drinking, are meant to be drank within the first year or two of purchasing them. Now, yes, there are some wines that are going to be age-worthy, but for the most part, wines are not meant to really be aged, at least the ones that you and I are going to be purchasing. Does that mean you shouldn't age a wine? No, you can definitely try it, see what happens. I'm aging a wine right now. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but we're going to find out. It's going to be a fun experiment. So just keep that in mind. If you do have a bottle of wine and it's been sitting there for a little bit, you probably want to open it, drink it a little bit sooner than later, because it might be starting to go a little south on you. The world of wine is super fun, especially if you ask me, red wines, these are my favorite. You can play with so many different things with them. There are so many different styles, different regions. This also goes for white wine, but just talking red wine specifically, you can do so much and find so many different things when it comes to red wines. So I hope you feel a little bit more comfortable and more confident. If you guys have any questions about red wine or a little bit of knowledge that you've ever learned when it comes to red wine, drop them down in the comments below so we can help each other out. Cheers, guys. I'll see you in the next one.